You're good, Mr. Cutter.
I'm good. All right, excellent. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 22nd Litchfield Budget Committee meeting. It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the
To
flag
the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving into public input. Anybody have any input this evening? Anybody from the public join us tonight?
Mr. Chair, I only see Ben Sargent, but I believe he's here for the business.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll close public input. There'll be a second public input section at the end of tonight's meeting, and then we'll move into review, additions, changes to tonight's agenda. Any modifications from anyone? Hearing none? Okay. We'll close that as well, and we'll move into correspondence. I do have a laundry list of correspondence that happened over the past week, so bear with me here. We have our budget report that was received on October 16th. Mr. Hayes shared his thoughts on October 16th for some recommendations. I put together my formal recommendations as I committed to sending to the committee after Monday night's Board of Selectmen meeting. I circulated that actually on Monday night. So hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at that. And I sent an updated version of that today to the committee, which is based upon some updates that were made to that budget. Ms. Douglas sent an email on 1019 for the Conservation Fund. Ms. Forty sent an email on the Parks and Rec as well as Highway Block Grant questions. That was also today. Also today was a question from Ms. Forty on the library. Today there was a note from Chief Reitzel, Fire Chief, to myself, which actually led to about an hour-long conversation about his budget and certain recommendations that were in the file that I sent across to you. Some agreements, a lot of disagreements, but we'll get into that as we get into his budget likely next week. Again, as mentioned, I sent out an updated Excel file today. Hopefully everyone has seen that. And then, let me turn my paper here. There was another email today on propane costs. There was a request, and we did receive the new IT manager contract, which we'll cover when we get to that portion of the budget. And there was also an email on the library update. Ms. Forty, I know you keep me honest with the correspondence. Did I miss anything?
Oh, I do my best. I think you had you forwarded some of the updates to the 2 minutes that we're going to talk about.
Yes, and so we have the October 1st and the October 8th minutes. There were some amendments to those minutes. I know Michelle, who's on with us tonight. Welcome back, Michelle. She is going to make those minutes finalized. So we have all the amendments and the formal changes. However, we can certainly approve them tonight with the motions that were made or the amendments that were recommended. Anything else to add for correspondence? No? Okay. Hopefully that covers it all. Now we will move into review and acceptance of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes, one from October 1st as well as October 8th. We're kind of backlogged tonight on minutes. We can either approve them as amended together, or we can do individual motions depending upon the will of the committee.
I would do individual just because I don't know if the attendance was the same each day. And I will make a motion to approve the minutes of 10-1 as amended.
A second.
We have a motion. We have a second by Ms. Forty.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Discussion. We will do a roll call vote. Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hayes,
Aye.
Ms. Forty,
Aye.
Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Aye.
Ms. Harrison,
Aye.
Mr. Sun,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
And I am also an aye. Motion passes 9-0-0. Now we're on to the October 8th minutes, please.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of October 8th as amended.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Douglas and a second by Ms. Forty. Discussion. Okay, Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hayes,
Aye.
Ms. Forty,
Aye.
Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins.
Aye.
Ms. Harrison,
Aye.
Mr. Sun?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
I am also an aye, and that also carries 9-0-0. Okay, great. Moving into reports and town business. Tonight kicks off the voting for the town business. We agreed as a committee to go through go to the bottom line budgets for each of the certain sections in the order that it was presented to the committee tonight. Are there any updates that the town would like to share before we get into voting?
You know about the IT contract, that's about it, right? I don't think there's anything else.
No, I just wanted to point out, which has already been stated, that Monday night, the Board of Selectmen and John Burnell agreed to an IT contract. You have a copy of that and the increase in the 2021 budget. We've also, since the last time we've met, had a discussion with the Board of Selectmen about setting the meals and rooms tax revenue projections, working on the best information we have at this point in time. We have reduced our forecast by 20%, and we have gone on record that we would cover that decrease using the unassigned fund balance as a way to fill that gap, and as sort of non-conventional practice of the board from over the last 5 years, but due to the fact that this is unusual times, we think this is this is an example of a good use of the unassigned fund balance to make up for the loss of revenue that we're pretty confident will come back one day. So it's not going to be an artificial drop in revenues. Also, overall, collectively, since the last time we met, or over the last couple of meetings, we have a total of $166,634 of reductions. Some of those, I believe you were aware of at the last time we met, and some of those are a result of agreements by the board to pre-purchase items such as some of the radio equipment that was targeted to be budgeted for in 2021. We also have had an increase of $72,810, and that's spread out through just adjustments in some insurance policies and things that we discussed last time as well, with updating our health insurance policy and all the enrollment status of our employees. But the bottom line is total reductions equals $93,824 to date. That puts us below the tax cap at this point in time in the amount of $24,339. And I just want to point out that we're still, for remaining cost items, we still have a union contract, which the board did finalize our negotiating team Monday night. So we're looking forward to meeting with the union really soon. And I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to get an agreement in place here fairly quickly. From both sides seem to be open to understanding the situation of the budget, and hopefully we'll be commencing negotiations and they'll be quick. The full-time clerk position is a warrant article. It's still on the warrant. That represents $9,579, and we still have not finalized our numbers for the health and human service agencies. Last year, this was a tax impact of $15,000. So all, as the warrant exists as of today, those are the three warrant articles that have a potential tax impact. I just point that out because as we look at the tax cap being, below 24,000 below, we still have three warrant articles that could increase or decrease that amount.
Okay, thank you for the update. Any questions for Mr. Brown before we get into it? No, just giving everyone a minute here on the WebEx.
Yeah.
All right, then let's go ahead and proceed with voting. We're going to kick it off with town meeting tonight. This is account 4130.30. Are there any questions or actions taken by the committee this evening? I'll make a motion then. I'm going to motion to reduce the budget by $250, and this is specifically regarding the town report line.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion being that the actual amount spent on town report this year was $220. Historically, we were about the $500 mark. So historically, I think this is about right. But given the shift to electronic materials, this is an opportunity for me, I think, to decrease the slide. Further discussion?
I just wanted to point out, I don't believe that's the expenditure to date. Where is that?
This is going back into September when I ran the analysis, so.
Oh, okay. Where is it, under town meeting?
Mhm.
Annual town report.
220.
No, okay, it didn't hit yet, that one bill. So yeah, we have $219 expended to date. I believe this a check request that's been submitted recently to cover our inkjet printers for not the cartridges for this year. So it should come in right around that 500.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Those inkjet cartridges aren't captured somewhere else, and where we have inkjet cartridges in the line items.
We for printing of the town report, that was one item that we used. Again, it's $500 and everything's done in-house with paper, ink, the binders, the plastic binders, the little plastic sleeves.
Mhm.
So
How many do we print in a year?
it,
I mean, I used to grab them every year, but
yeah,
they're not. Then just
it
go-
varies, but it's right around 100 a year right now.
So you're saying about $5 a piece?
Yes, yeah. It's not. I just wanted to point out that that's by the time we come to the year end, we'll be close to the 500. I'm not, concerned about Mr. Cutter's motion, but I just wanted to make sure
Okay.
we understood that it probably does cost close to $500 in materials.
No, I appreciate that. It's just when you said printer cartridges, I wasn't sure that we actually had dedicated printer cartridge to this line item versus the ones that you see scattered about the budget. So that was my only.
Okay, further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with the room. Ms. Douglas.
Aye.
Mr. Hayes.
Aye.
Ms. Forty.
No.
Mr. Leary.
No.
Mr. Hodgkins.
Aye.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Aye. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Harrison.
No.
Mr. Sun.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
And I am also an aye. The motion carries 6-3-0. Okay. Further discussion or motions on town meeting?
I just did it.
Hearing none, we'll move into town clerk, please. And this is budget 4140.10. This is much harder being remote, by the way. Okay, any discussion motions on town clerk 4140?
So, Mr. Chairman, it looked, in going through the file that you sent, that you particularly focused on the seminar and convention lines throughout and just did like a 50% regardless of which particular budget it was attached to. Could you just explain that a bit so we can understand your thinking?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. And so what you'll see here is in generally the lines of 811 seminars and conventions, as well as the mileage lines, which is 810 across the entire budget. These two lines were pretty much level funded, in some cases increased because of department needs. And given where we are in current state, I felt that was out of touch from reality because a lot of these conferences are virtual. We're not traveling to conferences, and to having it be level funded, to me just didn't seem to make sense. Now, I agree there should be some funding across all these lines in the event that we do get back to some degree of normalcy. But I believe it's overtaxing the citizens at this point in time, given where we are. And given a tight tax gap here, I think this is a good opportunity for us to make some motions. So yes, for line 811 town clerk for seminars and conventions, I did have a recommendation to reduce this by 50% at $312.50. What you'll see as we get into the police, I know Chief Sergeant's with us tonight, as well as the fire. What you'll see is I have not made a full 50% reduction, given some of the priorities of those departments. So I will make a motion then to reduce the seminars and conventions line 811 from town clerk by $312.50, which is a 50% reduction of what is budgeted.
Second.
Beat you to it.
I'm sorry, was that Mr. Sun?
Sure.
Thanks. Bear
I'll
with me,
share.
guys. Further discussion.
Mr. Cutter, I'd just also like to point out, in addition to, a lot of these conventions and seminars and things of that nature being virtual, we need to keep in mind as well, as far as COVID restrictions in terms of work availability as well. If you're traveling out of the region, at that point, it puts a tax on the rest of the employees within the department as well because of the quarantining rules and things of that nature. So I think just as a whole, unless there is a seminar or something like that that is needed by a particular department in order to maintain compliance, we should really just take a look at it and decide to reduce those altogether, just so that we're not burdening the employees that are not going.
Yeah, I'll agree with Mr. Taylor on this one. I've seen, at least in the education space, conferences and seminars that are already being pushed to virtual or even canceled late into 2021. And I know that's a trend that's unfortunately probably going to continue. I do, in hearing from fire and police last week, realize that there are certain conferences and seminars that they're required that do have a face-to-face component to it that's required. And so I think that's certainly understandable. But I think anywhere where we see conferences or seminars or travel and anticipate those are going to be virtual or not exist in 2021, we need to take a hard look at those lines.
Yeah, what I would just keep in mind to this committee or remind this committee is certainly we'll have a final chance to review the budget, where we stand after all the contracts, all the warrant articles are in December. And we could either make additions back into the budget or further reduce the budget if we feel it's warranted.
I'd just like to point out too, that even though we find ourselves in a situation where we are attending a lot of our training and conferences virtually, there's still a registration fee. So the annual conference that the New Hampshire Municipal Association has this time of the year coming up in November, it's typically a 2.5-day conference. They're still having that conference this year, and the registration fee somewhere around $75. So these conferences, they're not going to go away because they're very important to maintaining some of the staff certification and just keeping up to date on changes in laws and regulations. The cost to attend that type of training, whether it's virtually or face to face, there will still be some costs there.
Mr. Brown, I know the trend that I've seen, and I think we discussed this a few weeks ago, is that even though a lot of these are offering them virtually, because no one's traveling there and they're not having the physical space and physical components to those conferences, there's a reduced cost in those registrations. Is that something for NHMA or other organizations or associations you've seen as well?
So, the one conference that's coming up, New Hampshire Municipal Association, that fee, what is it right now? 65, 75. It's quite possible with when you actually rented the facility, that fee could be somewhere, depending on the status, the position you hold, whether you're elected official or not. It could be somewhere between $75, $90. So, but yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you that because they're not renting a conference center, that cost goes away.
Further discussion?
I mean, I don't disagree that there will probably see a reduction in cost. I feel like 50% is too steep to allow our municipal employees to receive the training and instruction that they need to do their jobs safely. I think it makes sense. You know, again, there'll be reduction potentially from that, but I at least in other conferences that I've seen, I haven't seen it reduced by half. I feel like that's going a little too far.
Yeah, I disagree with that. You know, in my professional world, we have seen the conferences be reduced by at least half. Certainly, the programs still are run, and there's a lot more virtual conferences, but because of the virtual nature, you know, these conferences to entice people to come, because it is more challenging participating in a conference virtually, as we all know, to entice them to come, they are significantly slashing the prices. It's not uncommon in my world to have it 50 to 75% reduced.
Also, as I had mentioned during my comments, that, you know, certainly if it's for a compliance standpoint, then that makes sense. But, you know, Mr. Brown, you had mentioned that, you know, we're already predicting a 20% decrease as far as the room and meals tax inflow. If I look at it in terms of, you know, safety equipment on the budget versus somebody going to a seminar to stay up to date in terms of new rules and regulations, I have to lean towards things such as safety equipment. And you know what? It just may be that you have to scour more of the boards and things of that nature in order to gather that information instead of being able to get it easily in a 2-day conference.
Okay, further discussion?
I believe 50% reduction is a good starting point. If it needs to be adjusted later, then I think we'll all take that into consideration.
Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Douglas?
Aye.
Mr. Hayes?
Aye.
Ms. Forty?
No.
Mr. Leary?
No.
Mr. Hodgkins?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Harrison? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
What about the one above?
I have 2 months going here. It's really messing with me. No.
No. Okay. Mr. Sun?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
I
I am also an aye. That passes 6-3-0. Okay. Any other questions on town clerk? Motions? Okay, hearing none. We'll move into tax collection, please. And this is 4150.40. Okay, I am there. Any motions, questions, discussion from the committee? I will make a motion to reduce the seminars and conventions line for reasons we just went through as a committee. This is line 811 by 50%, which equates to $225.
Second.
We have a second by Mrs. Douglas. Discussion.
I think one thing to factor in too is we're discussing a line 811, which is the conferences and conventions, that if we're not actually traveling, it rolls over into 810 also. So those who are nervous about whether or not 811 is too much of a reduction, will see some of that reduction will spill into 810, and that has not been touched unless Mr. Cutter makes a second motion.
I am not intending to make a second motion on mileage and tolls. My vision, as described and as Mr. Hayes just kind of reiterated, right? I'd like to see the big picture at the end, right? Do this as a start and reevaluate at the end and see where additional cuts can be made.
Right. So my main point is when you do the seminars and conventions, you have the registration fee, but there's also typically mileage included. So if we're factoring registration, but not the mileage, if the registration is 55% as opposed to 50, well, that's offset by the mileage that we're not billing. So I'm comfortable with that.
I'd be willing to entertain a motion once we're through this one on mileage.
At the end.
Okay, we have a motion second, further discussion.
Oh, it's not right.
What's the dollar amount you're suggesting?
$225 reduction. Okay, Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hayes,
Aye.
Ms. Forty,
Aye.
Mr. Leary,
No.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Aye.
Ms. Harrison,
No.
Mr. Sun,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
I am also an aye. That passes 7-0. Further discussion or motions on tax collection? No motions on mileage?
End of the day. We'll see where we are.
Okay, end of the day. All right. So let's move forward into sanitation administration. This is 432110, please. Okay. Motions, discussion from the committee.
I'd like to make a motion to reduce the overtime by $1,000.
We have a motion by Mr. Taylor. Do we have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
We have a second by Ms. Douglas. Mr. Taylor.
As we've talked about in the previous meetings, certainly the amount of overtime that is put into the budget needs to be examined. Certainly if we're going to end up in situations where we have pay increases, which is going to bump up the amount of overtime, we need to put a governor on that and start to take a look at reducing the overtime budgets.
Further discussion from the committee.
I think this is one of the ones where we've seen this line expended, maybe not 100%, but they've used it there. It's an area of our town where overtime unfortunately is needed from time to time. I wouldn't feel comfortable with the $1,000 reduction.
Where are we at now, Troy?
Yeah, I was going to ask, the 3-year average that we've calculated here is $3,054.
Exactly.
And I wasn't sure, Mr. Cutter, did you have a different calculation on that on your spreadsheet?
Let me just validate it. Yeah, I mean, my formula here that I'm looking at, if it's right, says it's 5,224.
I saw, and I went back and took a look. So our 3-year average is 3,054. And this is
Well,
one.
your 2000, I think what's throwing it off here is in 2018, your actual for this line was 8,775.
I just did a budget report today. I didn't see 8,000, 9,000. Something was the 3 years.
That's why I'm getting that number. But in any event,
2018.
2018, he said.
Yeah, 2018. But in any event, I mean, your actual 2015 was $1,000, and then it went up to 3,700 in 2017. It spiked in 2018 to 8,700. My number's right, which I believe it is. You can confirm that. 2019, it was 3,180. And your actual, again, this is as of mid-September, was 2,400 on this line.
Right. So
I
feel like it's
also,
already been
just from the
reduced.
committee stance, this was in my recommendations as well. Mr. Taylor beat me to the motion. So I also agree with Mr. Taylor's philosophy here that we need to take a hard look at overtime. I know it's uncomfortable to talk about because it is utilized as a town, but we as a town need to do a better job managing our overtime. And the only way to control that is to be making reductions like this and to reevaluate kind of at the end in the big picture.
And I guess I would counter that with, I feel that the town did reduce, having it only be 2,000 for this line, given where we are and where we've been in previous years. Compared to the 2 other years that I've done this, I feel like the town has taken a harder look and done more reductions before it's gotten to us than I've seen previously. So I guess I take that into account.
And they've also expanded the hours at the facility, so there is more man hours being worked there.
Right. I would actually ask why they did that. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to ask that person there. That was
Mostly because people couldn't get there during the day, and so they expanded hours to accommodate the public.
right. And I guess I would counter that with the dump hours have worked perfectly for how many, so there's so much, I don't know how long you've been out there, but all of a sudden now, because people are staying home, we have to have it open from noon instead of from 3 o'clock or,
I think that
There's a lot more people using it, I think.
there was an increase in use, and also we wanted to the best of our ability,
Space.
try to spread out the customers as much as possible as we could within our budget. So by adding the additional hours, the hope was that people, instead of coming a Saturday morning, would use the other hours, just try to spread out the demand. So just in this department, just so you're aware, the overtime that's being paid is to one employee. The department has a one full-time employee. All the other employees are part-time. So this employee works on holidays. The facility is open on Veterans Day. It's open the day after Thanksgiving. So when that employee works those days, that is an overtime transaction. When there's a snowstorm, I mentioned this stuff the last time we reviewed it, but I just wanted to just recap it real quick. When we have snowstorms, we have to come into the facility a few hours earlier, get the facility cleaned up, ready to go, so that when we open up for business, we're ready to go. We have off days that contractors come into the facility to haul the containers away. We, depending on, sometimes we have to come in, remove snow. Sometimes things are not as tidy as we want, and we have to come in and do work to get those containers ready to be transported. And also, again, one full-time employee, we have staff shortages. We rely heavily on our part-time employees who have other jobs. So we don't have the flexibility of really other full-timers where we can say, you're going to be covering this shift, you're going to be covering that shift. The part-timers that we have pretty much set on their already their schedule that they work every week. Just wanted you to be aware of that. I think the mistake in this department is the fact that we've been level funding $2,000 and spending actually more in overtime, but there's been a reluctance to try to ask for what the real amount should be. It's shame on us.
Just to also add in on that particular piece, certainly the increase in wages from 2019 to 2020 and then in a little bit into 2021, I think helps offset the fact of the reduction in overtime. And again, I think, as the chairman had mentioned, it's just a discipline that the town needs to look at in terms of, funding properly the amount of time and reducing the runaway overtime that we continue to see.
Okay. Further discussion?
I agree with a lot of what's been said. However, I do think that $1,000 may be too much on this item. So I'm going to move to amend the motion to reduce this line item by only $500.
Okay, we have an amended motion by Mr. Sun. Is there a second?
I'll second to discuss.
All right, second by Ms. Douglas. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the comment that Mr. Taylor just added. I think it provides some good context in seeing, the wages on this particular line item with the full-time staff and that increase to help offset. I think looking across the spend over this for 3 years, and as well as Mr. Brown's explanation of how and kind of the why behind this overtime, I feel a 50% cut is too much initially. While I do want to holistically overall see us reduce our spend on overtime, I feel a $500 start is a good place here.
Okay, further discussion on the amended motion. All right, let's move it to vote. Ms. Douglas, this is voting on the $500 amended motion, please.
Aye.
Mr. Hayes,
No.
Ms. Forty,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins,
No.
Ms. Harrison,
No.
Mr. Sun,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
and I am an aye. Motion passes 6-3-0. Okay. And just to confirm, right, for Dave at the sanitation at the recycling center, we appreciate all that you do. This isn't personal. It's just a matter of changing kind of the behaviors in town, looking at hard at some of the numbers, right? So again, thank you for all that you do, especially in the crazy times that we live in. Okay, any other motions or changes to sanitation administration budget?
We didn't finish the vote. We voted to amend, but we didn't actually vote on the reduction.
I believe that was the motion to reduce $500.
Wasn't it to amend the initial motion? We voted to amend the motion, but we never actually voted on the motion itself.
Okay, I thought it was worded that we were making the motion to $500, but we can certainly do that again. Is there a motion to reduce line 140
No.
overtime by $500? Is that what you're referring to?
That is the
So
current
moved.
motion on the table. We had a motion to 1,000. We voted to amend it. Now we need to resolve the motion to reduce.
Make a motion.
But the motion's already active. Now we vote on it. You can vote on the amended motion. The motion has been amended. Now we need to vote on that.
That's what we just did, but okay, we'll vote again. Ms. Douglas,
I don't think we did.
Mr. Hayes,
No.
Ms. Forty,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
No.
Mr. Sun,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
and I am also an aye.
Aye.
Well, I believe that was 7-2-0. Is that correct? I think so. I got the okay from Michelle. All right, so that passes 7-2-0.
Thank you for closing the loop.
Sure, well, thank you. Okay, any other motions or questions on sanitation administration?
I have a motion, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
to reduce the demolition material disposal line item by $12,642.
All right, and this is line 693, and what was the amount again? 12,000?
$12,642.
Thank you.
I will
Motion.
I will second it because I'm intrigued. Please.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Taylor.
Holy cow.
If you take a look at over time, and as Mr. Brown had highlighted during the discussions that we've had in the previous weeks, that we saw a massive increase in the amount of residents that were going ahead and doing, basement cleanouts and shed cleanouts and things of that nature. So I feel like going into 2021, we will probably return back to some of the normalcy that's in that $94,000 to $97,000 a year versus this higher item due to COVID at $112,642. So I reduced it down to $100,000 to at least accept a little bit of growth.
Town Administrator Brown, can you just speak to, if you by chance know, the cost per ton? Because, I know on a personal level, the recycling costs per ton have gone up significantly, like nearly double the cost over what it once was.
Well, what we have a contract with Waste Management. And so each year of the contract, the hauling costs increase 3% and the disposal costs increases 3%. So right out of the gate for 2021, you have a 3% increase over last year's rates. What we've seen, we've used as our budget every single year on these two lines, the run rate that we've experienced in the prior 12 months. and it's been a very effective tool. Dave has done a tremendous job at keeping this budget pretty much on target. When you look at the year-end actuals, his estimates come in almost on target. So yes, we've had an increase in usage here in March and April and May due to the COVID, but a lot of other items, we just, in general, in the town of Litchfield, we just have waste being produced, C&D type waste being produced, because people, they do stuff at their house. So we have not only, just cleaning out your garage and shed, but anytime we're doing a renovation project at your house, that waste is produced. And I think the motion that's on the table is way too aggressive for anyone to predict that we're going to reduce our tonnage that much. This is one of those lines, again, that we've consistently over the past 5 years have used our projections from the department head, and he's consistently come in pretty much on target.
I mean, based on the
Okay,
run
further
rate.
discussion?
Yeah, just that based on the run rate for this year, so following that logic, when we decided, when it was decided on the 97,543, that was based on the previous year. We've had an increase this year. I mean, there's about 11% remaining. I'm assuming we could very well exceed this line. So it's,
We definitely could exceed. We've been
it's
monitoring this,
probably
and we
gonna
could
happen.
exceed it this year.
yeah, just because of some of those changes in behaviors. Just that there is a method to that. It's not like the line was just increase to increase.
I personally, I appreciate the outside the box thinking. I think it's an interesting way to approach it. I think for a motion of this size, I'd like to have the gentleman here to discuss and explain. I'm not opposed to the idea. I'm not comfortable with it. And I think that more discussion would be warranted before supporting a reduction of that size. From me, in my opinion, anyway.
I actually like the motion. Because I think that if people are cleaning out now, I think we're going to see a dip in 2021. We're not just going to see it go back to, $94,000. I think we're going to see demolition go way down.
Except everybody's now home eating prepackaged foods that they used to dump at the school.
So once that stops, and maybe it'll stop in March, we don't know, about a quarter of the year, I think we're going to see, quite a dip because people aren't going to be so ambitious cleaning out their homes and having prepackaged food. So I think I'm in favor of a $12,000 reduction. And that doesn't bring it down to 94,000. That just brings it down to 100,000.
Well, again, if you take a look at the attached document, if we're just talking C&D, so we've taken from July to December in 2019, and then we took in 2020 January to June. Those tonnage rates they're not varied by a great delta other than in April and May.
Right.
But the other months, the other 10 months are pretty consistent. June, all right, I'll give you April 114 tons, May 104, June 90. I think we're just getting hung up on the fact that we mentioned that when this COVID pandemic started, we saw an uptick in disposal in this area, but the average has gone back into 2019 pre-COVID and 3 months of 2020 pre-COVID, and then you saw the uptick for 3 months. And that's what your run rate's based on.
And I understand what you're saying, Mr. Brown. Also, part of this motion is also to help let the public know that, they are getting increased services, and some sort of behavior needs to change. If, they want to have flat or little increase as far as taxes are concerned, then there are times that motions have to come with tough consequences. We can't sit here and take off, $250 here and $250 there and expect not to see a large tax increase that the voters are going to freak out about. So, you know what? There's times that you have to go ahead and take a look at something. And you know what? I think just based on, the jump from the 90,000 plus to 112 is just too strong for me. And you know what? I wanted to at least go to vote so that way people are on the record in terms of how they stand.
Yeah, and I'll just let you know that out of all, this is one of the services that the taxpayers in this town, from what I hear from them, they expect that their taxpayers, that their tax dollars go towards this service. And when they have debris that whether it's trash or C&D, that they need to dispose of, they expect to be able to do it. So it would be hard. This is a very difficult area to change behavior and to take a service away from the Litchfield taxpayer. This is something they actually expect. And from what my interaction with the department head and citizens, they fully expect the services that they receive at this facility and not be reduced.
Yeah, my 2 cents is, I agree with the town on this one. I think I like the motion. I think the motion's a bit aggressive for my liking though. And so what I'm going to do is make an amended motion to reduce this by $6,000.
I'll second your motion.
Same reasons just mentioned. I think it's too aggressive, the 12,642. I absolutely appreciate the spirit of Mr. Taylor and your discussion and your rationale. I think we need to take a hard look at the budgets at the end and then come to these types of decisions and conclusion. I'd like to also have the opinion of Dave. I'm sure he's going to hear about this motion certainly this evening and come back to the board. And I'd like to keep it open. But at this point, I think, a $6,000 motion is more palatable for the town and more in line.
I feel like I can get behind the $6,000 in hearing where we are to date and anticipated to spend at the end of the year. Hearing Mr. Brown, explaining a 3% increase, that's going to put us, if my mental math is good, in the $105,000 to $107,000 range. So I feel good with that based on some of those numbers that we've heard this evening.
Further discussion, please.
I think that there have been some very good points made. I mean, yes, once you clear out your house, you're not likely to have to clear it out again for another, well, in my case, probably 5 years, but for some, maybe longer. But and looking at the numbers, it looks like the tonnage is up 5%. The hauls are up. I think it was 20%. Whether those are the right numbers, I don't know. But there's definitely going to be an increase because the cost per unit has increased. But is the overall increase outrageous? I would think 5% on tonnage is probably not outrageous, especially when you consider the amount of construction going on, people, installing appliances and whatever comes with the boxes and other stuff that comes with that. But whether it's 21% increase for the number of hauls, I don't know. 12 is, I like where you're going. I appreciate the aggressive nature of that motion, but I think it's a little too rich for my blood. So I know it's going to stun some people here, but I think I can definitely get behind 6, but 12 gets me a little nervous. And I do appreciate the opportunity that we'll have to revisit it because I do want Dave to have an opportunity to say whether or not he can live with that reduction.
All right, so let's vote on the amended motion, right? And this is for the approval to amend the motion. Ms. Douglas?
Aye.
Mr. Hayes?
No.
No. Ms. Forty?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Mr. Hodgkins?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, Ms. Harrison? Yes. Mr. Sun?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
And I am also an aye. That passes 8-1-0. Now we'll go into the motion of reducing the line by $600 or $6,000, excuse me. Ms. Douglas?
Aye.
Mr. Hayes?
Aye.
Ms. Forty?
Aye.
Mr. Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins.
Aye.
You move on my screen on me. Ms. Harrison.
I do. Jump around. Aye.
Aye, okay. Mr. Sun.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
And I am also an aye, so that passes 9-0-0. All right, further motions or comments on sanitation? I'll make a motion to reduce, in this case, mileage and tolls, by $50.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, discussion being the same principles, right? Where this is a line actually where I did see mileage and tolls. I did think it was out of alignment, and I think reducing it by half in spirit of other motions being made on this budget is appropriate. Discussion. All right, let's vote. Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hayes,
Aye. Excuse me, aye.
Ms. Forty,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Aye.
Ms. Harrison,
Aye.
Mr. Sun,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor. And I'm
Aye.
also an aye. That passes 9-0-0. Okay. Anything else on sanitation administration? Let's move into road agent, please. And this is budget 431110. Any motions, comments on the road agent budget, please? Okay. Hearing none, are we good to move into road maintenance? Road maintenance, please, 431210. Any motions, discussion from the committee?
Can I make a motion to reduce the bottom line on this account by 5,000?
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Forty and a second by Ms. Douglas. Discussion?
So kind of to break it down, I was looking at some of the averages and things. So I think it goes down to the tree removal line, which I think Chairman Cutter, you also had marked. Road maintenance line was a little high. Gravel, the seminars and conventions, putting things more in line with average actual spending. It came out to just under 5,000.
Yeah, where I was on this particular budget, if we're looking at bottom line, I was closer to 13,000. I was actually at 12,900, but a good portion of that, and what you didn't mention, and I know was a key point for the town, is this catch basin replacement. I know that's a large increase this year due to some priorities. It's gone up to the request is $18,750, over $10,000 in this current year, due to the need to replace some of those catch basin replacements. I just think that's too aggressive for this current year, and I think we need to phase it a little bit better.
So are you amending the motion?
I'm throwing it out there for discussion still.
All right, let's see.
So they did, you're talking about line 578?
Line
basin
578, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, they're asking for 5,000 more, but
So-
there are plans for that. There's catch basins in need of replacement. It's the existing need. From what
Yes,
I
the board of
got.
selectmen did reduce this by 3,750, right? So it takes the ask down from 18,750, where it once was, down to 15,000.
Right.
my motion is to set this at 10,000, or my thought.
So I have not watched too many of the Board of Selectmen meetings because I like to keep a blank slate, coming unbiased. So what is the explanation and the reasoning for increasing the number so dramatically?
The reason was we're not really doing a good job in this area of maintaining our catch basins. So what you see on the surface would be when you see a catch basin, you see those signs of it sinking in the ground. And you can sometimes, you drive over it, you feel it, or if you're walking the road, you'll see cracks around it. There's sinkhole, it's starting to sink. It's everything that's happening is under the ground, and you want to try to get to that before you actually have a sinkhole or a failure. And it's actually quite expensive. It's not work that we can do. Sometimes we can do the work, but in most cases we have to contract it out, and the cost can range anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 a manhole. What we're looking at is to repair a catch basin, you're removing the pavement around that basin, you're excavating down below the grate. You typically have a series of bricks, and then you'll have hopefully a cement collar. Most of the work all the time is those cement bricks, and depending on how bad a condition they're in, you can replace some of them, build it back up to grade, patch it back, and you're good to go. You want to prevent water from getting in underneath that catch basin, those grate systems, getting underneath the asphalt. When that happens, that's when it starts to erode and you can quickly get a sinkhole. It's all preventative, and it's to try to prevent this, the failure, and doing that kind of work, like I said, can cost you $1,500 to $3,000 compared to a failure, which not only it leads to safety problems, during rain events, storm events, and then those repairs can escalate up to $5,000 per hole. It's nothing more than infrastructure maintenance that we think, based on driving around and the survey we've done, we've got to start trying to do at least 15 a year.
All right, so that leads into my next question, because we have or at least we maintain a list of roads and streets by priority for what needs to be addressed roadways. Do we have a similar schedule for the catch basins?
I do not have a schedule, a replacement schedule for catch basins.
So, because my main concern, my question then would be, well, if we did 15 a year, how many years out? How do we arrive at 15? Is it right number 10? Is it 20? Like, I just... How many catch basins do we have in town?
I'll be honest with you. We're trying to just send a signal to the selectmen and the budget committee that more funding is needed in this area. We have over 500 catch basins in this town. And so for me to be putting in a number of $25,000, $30,000, I know it's not going to be acceptable. So we tried to go to 18,750. That didn't work. We backed it down to 15,000. We're gonna do whatever we can with the money you give us, and I mean that's the bottom line. The message we're trying to send is that there's work to be done out there, and it's really preventative.
I mean,
Like driving your car, you can drive your car for a couple of years and don't change the oil, but eventually it's going to catch up to you.
I mean, I'm not going to speak for the road maintenance people, but I also would think, in my experience, seeing not just the replacement cost associated with the catch basin that increases over time if you let it go, but if you're plowing, now you start accidentally catching a lip and now you have a bigger plow issue because you ripped up pavement. You might pull a water main out of an area when that areas start sinking. So I support road maintenance, and I think that's one of the reasons why, local property taxes. My question would be though, like long term, what are we looking at, and how far does this get us? What is the plan for addressing the problems? How many of them are issues? So that kind of thing. So I'm not going to be the one to say 15 is the wrong number. It should be 10, especially if we have 500, because at that rate, my kids' will still be fixing some catch basins. But I would like to get behind it fully, to have an idea of the magnitude of the issue and how far this actually gets us to addressing that. So I like your thought process, Andrew, but catch basins might be one area where I'm actually willing to let that stay.
Okay, further discussion, please.
I would just say, you know what, I'd be more than happy to hear of a plan and reduce and make changes later on. But at least for tonight, I'd rather at least us start that process because we won't see a plan unless there's action behind it.
And I would counter to say that I think the Board of Selectmen reduced it to show, hey, we're looking at this, we want to see a return for our investment. And I would hope that this time next year we would see, if this line stays 15, that we would see it all expended and we would have some lovely replaced catch basins. You don't want a sinkhole and then think of the cost with, having the police stand there and direct traffic and it just.
So what
gets
caused
bananas.
the washout several years ago on Albuquerque down by Blackbird Lane? Was that a catch basin or was that just undermining as a result?
I believe that was, I wasn't here.
Yeah.
But I've heard the story and my guess is that water got behind the culvert
Okay.
and decided it was going to run along the length of the culvert. And as it does that, it starts bringing soil material with it. And the hole gets bigger and bigger.
But that's what you end up with, a catch basin if you
Catch
don't take care of
basin.
it.
Anytime, like I said, everyone sees it in New England. You see the stress, the sink, and the cracks around the catch basin. Once water starts penetrating through those cracks, it starts deteriorating the structure.
That's all you need to be is on the end of a cul-de-sac and unable to leave because your road's collapsed. So, like I said, I'm all for reducing in the budget where it's appropriate. I just don't know that I agree that this one line is appropriate, which is why I think it's great we do bottom line budgets adjustments. So I think that's excellent.
Okay, I'm going to make an amended motion here. The original motion here that is on the table is 5,000. I'm going to amend the motion to $8,000 reduction on this budget.
All right, second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion being, even if I take the catch basin out of the math, right, and leave it as funded currently, there's still other areas of this budget that I believe are overfunded. One of them being trees, as Ms. Forty had mentioned, another one being the road maintenance and improvement, which I think is a little bit high, and another one being the gravel purchases, as well as seminars and conventions. If I add them up, I'm at about $8,000, which is equal to my motion. Discussion.
I support those.
All right, let's vote on the amended motion, and then we'll vote on the actual dollar amount. Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hayes,
Aye.
Ms. Forty,
No.
Mr. Leary,
No,
Mr. Hodgkins,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
No.
Mr. Sun,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
and I am also an aye. That passes 6-3-0. Now we'll move into the vote of reducing the bottom line of road maintenance by $8,000. Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hayes,
Aye.
Ms. Forty,
This is painful. No, I can't.
no. Mr. Leary,
no,
Mr. Hodgkins,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
No.
Mr. Sun,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
and I am also an aye. That passes 6-3-0. Okay. Give 1 minute, please. Moving into street lighting. This is 43-16-30.
And so just to confirm, Mr. Brown, the run rates that you're using, I mean, these are actual run rates. Like this is your best estimate based on how we're using the resources.
Right, so streetlights, the run rate that I calculated using from July 19 to June 20 was, I'm gonna go down one more here, $13,798.13.
Yep.
What did I budget? 13.8. 13.8. I rounded up 13.8.
I have a question. The streetlights they're not metered. So it's just a cost from Eversource per streetlight, right? So
It's not
like a usage type of thing.
It's they're not metered, but the bills do change every month,
Light
and it
hours.
must be with daylight savings and some factors they've got figured in. And the problem with using a 3-year average in this case, you know, if you go back to what we were paying in 17 or 18, you've had rate increases and charges and distribution costs and that kind of stuff. So that's why I prefer to use the last 12 months as a run rate for the best budget estimate.
Yeah, the 3-year average of this line is 12,840. I mean, we've been all over the map, right? There's years where we've spent 10,000, you know, it's gone up to 12,000. Now it's in the mid 13s range. And therefore the budget of 13.8. You know, what I'd like to do is make a motion here to reduce this by $300.
All right, second.
Why?
We have a motion and a second. Reason being, the actual 2020 approved was 13,350. I don't know what the current actual is. Mid-September was 8,838. By setting this at 13,500, it allows for a small percentage increase over the life.
So that the report captures from January to today, and his estimate is for a year. So you're short a few months when you do 8,000, right?
When I do 8,000, what do you mean?
Well, what's your 8,000 is current? Cost
The
to date?
8,000 is January through mid-September, right?
So if you annualize that, what is the cost?
I mean, we're at almost 10, it's 9,992.70. We're at almost 10. We're just at a quarter left of the budget line with what we have left.
I mean,
To
And
go
they
in
still
the year.
have 3,350 in the budget.
we know what the run rate is for the past year. We know Eversource is only going to go up because my bill never goes down. So I just don't know how much play we actually have in this line item.
But in order to raise the rate, they have to go to the PUC first, and you have to be notified of that ahead of time to saying that the rates are going to go up. So if there hasn't been any notification saying the rates are going up, then the rate should theoretically stay the same. And so unless you're adding streetlights, they're not metered. So it is a charge per light. So how it goes up and down, I don't understand that, but
And
Mr. They are adding streetlights, correct?
Please.
New developments, they are adding streetlights, so it's going.
so if they're adding streetlight, that would be the reason why the cost would go up then.
So this won't even cover it then,
You know,
yeah,
realistically.
Mr. Cutter, we just printed out the budget report today, and we're at current year expenditures of $10,074. And we can't connect online here to see, but we're fairly confident that that represents, because, you know, like an electric bill, we receive it once a month. And we think that is what's missing right now is September, October, November, December.
Right. And how many lights are being added through the developments?
Where'd it go? I had my notes there.
I do hope that's being part of the
70,
impact
what did we
fees.
say?
I don't know.
So based upon that, you'd be at a run rate of $15,000 by the end of the year.
If what I don't know is if the September bill is included in this 10 grand.
If it isn't,
Well, that's
It
an
is.
increase from last, because I'm looking at last week's, the last that we have. And that's an increase.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right here, the inventory, 47 streetlights. I knew we had an inventory.
So it's 10,000 for 9 months. Is that what you're saying?
I can't connect to fund accounting, so I'm not sure if we paid September's yet.
Okay.
So, I mean, based on what we're discussing, I don't see any reason to reduce this number. Without, I just don't feel I have a I mean, it is unfortunately not like we can negotiate much with Penachuk, short of finding another distributor, but I don't know that you can, or switching lights. I mean, there's really not much we can do to affect this line item.
Yeah, I don't see a reason to reduce it either. I think we're right at the run rate of about 13, some odd thousand, without getting online. If this represents, 75% of the year, 3/4 of the year at 10,000.
I tend to agree based on everything I've heard and what I see in the run rate from July 19 to June 20. I think I feel good leaving this one at 13.8.
Okay, so let me do the committee a favor. I will withdraw my motion.
Withdraw the
Can
second.
we get a withdrawal of the second?
Done.
And then we'll close street lighting and move forward. Sound like a plan?
Sounds good.
All right. Next budget is accounting, please. And this is 415010. Okay, discussion. Any motions on accounting, please? I'll make a motion to do a bottom line reduction on accounting by the sum of $1,812.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rationale being in the file that I sent across to the budget committee. This is specifically related to a small reduction in office supplies for $139 and then mileage and seminars at 50%, which was previously talked about tonight. Discussion.
I'm in line with the mileage and seminars for every reason we've talked about up to this point. What was your thought process with the office supplies? I'm just curious.
The office supply line is a recommendation of $139 to set it at $2,100, which is in line to what was approved for 2020.
Okay.
For this seminar line, it was already reduced from 2020, and they have it pretty, I mean, maybe Mr. Brown can speak to the necessity of some of these trainings, but I know some of these are necessary. And
So,
fixed.
if I may, just as far as mileage and tolls, you got two lines here. You have $296 for the finance manager and other staff, and that's strictly mileage reimbursement for traveling. We have travel that we have to go up to North Conway, Concord, so that's the mileage. But for the town clerk tax collector, we have 250 trips that we do to the bank, and there really isn't. There's no flexibility in that. We took a look this year because we've heard feedback from the budget committee at trying to utilize more technology here. And we looked at 3 different things, trying to contract the service out, which a courier service could provide this service to us at $25 per day. That equates to $6,250. We looked at a scanner, which we could, it ranged on, we'd have to purchase this from our bank, and the annual cost was right around $1,200. But the scanner would only do checks. So we still have cash. And as I've told this board, state law requires that if we have $1,500 of cash, that deposit needs to be made. So we figured if we had a scanner, probably cost you about $1,200 a year to be able to send your checks. We're probably still going to be doing about 3 trips per week to the bank. That's going to be another $1,400. So you're looking at about $2,600 to do the scanner and still doing the trips. Right now, we budget 250 trips, $2,300. And we go to the bank every day. there's very little cash that's left in this building. And I know this town, I wasn't here, but I know this town did have an issue at one point in time with cash disappearing until eventually it was caught.
Mr. Brown, was there an option on the table of not accepting cash as a form of payment with the town?
You know, I wouldn't want to be that employee that tries to tell any customer that comes in that we don't accept cash. It's not a very pleasant conversation with taxpayers.
Are we seeing a reduction in the usage of cash given the current environment?
We are.
So is it something that perhaps over the next year we can look at reevaluating and see if people, you know, between the number of different options that are available to not use cash, to encourage people to
I
move
think
away?
that I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're looking at the scanner with the understanding that, you know, maybe we can you know, if it's 3 trips or 2 trips per week. I think that's something that we are definitely going to be looking at.
Right.
I'd also just remind the committee, when we were in town clerk, you know, we talked about, you know, mileage and tolls, if you recall, and this is a line item that was not reduced in that particular budget, right?
Are there any town vehicles that can be used for this? Such, you know, so you're not using.
Good question.
You know, I would have to. The only vehicle that I'd be aware of would be in the police department. Those are the only vehicles that we have. The other, I mean, the building inspector's vehicle is pretty much used throughout the day. So I'd probably, if I were going to turn to, you know, a town vehicle, I would turn to the police department to see if we could utilize a special detail vehicle, or, well, it would only be a special detail that'd be available. Yeah. But
We can't affect policy, but I do think we could encourage you guys to start over time looking at other alternatives. The reality is cash is becoming less of a favored usage of payment, and by not making these runs, it provides additional time of service in the building. It increases accessibility for the person who would normally be making that trip, now not making that trip. They're now available to do other items or tasks. So I do think from a productivity standpoint, it's something to look at, but I can't make you do it.
Well, is there some kind of town statute or law that says the cash has to be removed from the building every night?
I think there's a limit, like 1,500, I think you said?
the state law is 1,500.
I don't know how many days it takes to get to 1,500.
Right. So I guess that would be the thing. You can reduce the mileage and tolls if there is less than 1,500. I mean, there's no reason someone can't be accountable for the money. At the end of the night, it can be put in a lockbox, just like a lot of other businesses do, because they're not going to a
A
bank.
lot of organizations that volunteer in town have cash that they are responsible for until they
Right.
deposit.
So that person's initials are on that money until the next morning, or so you can
Or
combine
Friday.
trips. I think this is a line that can be reduced.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion before we go into vote.
I forgot where we
Can
are.
you say the amount again?
The amount is $1,812.
Bottom line though, right? So
Bottom line across 3 different lines, $139 for line 620, $1,298 for 810, and then $375 for line 811. Total $1,812.
I mean, at the end of the day, the decision is going to be up to the Board of Selectmen as to where they actually land those dollars. Do I think it's an overall reasonable reduction? Sure. Do I think it's necessarily going to stick where you think they should go? Not necessarily, but overall, I think the reduction is fair.
Does it ever go where I say it's going to go?
You and I, no.
All right, so let's move it into vote. Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hayes,
Aye.
Ms. Forty,
No.
Mr. Leary,
No.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Aye.
Ms. Harrison,
No.
no, Mr. Sun,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
and I am also an aye. That passes 6-3-0. Okay, moving into reevaluation of property, 415210.
Everybody's favorite people.
I think we're good. Next.
Huh?
Next.
I'm getting there. Give me just a moment.
Board of Selectmen, right?
Is there anything on reevaluation of property?
Was there a discussion about like, because we have an end of year, I thought we were gonna get hit with a lump sum, and you guys were talking about spreading that value out. Am I remembering this correctly?
So that, yes, so there's a warrant article that's being
Okay.
proposed for this year to create an expendable trust fund so that we start saving money for the last year.
Excellent. So I wasn't crazy. All right, I got it. We're good.
Any motions? All right, let's move into Board of Selectmen, please. 413010. Any motions on the Board of Selectmen budget?
I gotta get there first.
And just for point of reference, I know we have both Chief Sergeant and Chief Breitzel on tonight. Thank you so much for sticking it out and joining so far. I think the reality is that we're not going to be getting to the police and fire department budgets tonight. We're likely going to get to it next week. So if that changes your mind in joining in for the rest of this meeting, by all means.
I appreciate that, Mr. Scott. I think I'm gonna listen in so I can have some good tactics next week.
I see your game.
You guys are doing a great job. Thank you all for your service.
Thank you. All right, back to the Board of Selectmen budget. Any motions, questions?
No. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay, moving into legal expenses, please. 415310.
Jumping all around here.
Going in the order as it was presented. to the committee.
What I should do is we should have Troy next time, like drag and drop the tabs. in the right
Move
order.
the tabs over.
All right, any thoughts, motions? This is a one-line budget, so any thoughts, motions?
Motion to reduce by 3,116.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second discussion, Ms. Forty.
So that would bring us down to, I believe my intention was 35. I appreciate that this line was reduced prior to coming to us. I think we can do a little more to it and still have the funds that we need for the legal expenses, getting it more in line with some actual spend, completely understanding that we can't anticipate all legal expenses. I felt that a reduction is possible, fully knowing that should we need it, we'll figure it out. But I think we can reduce it a bit. I felt what was in the chairman's spreadsheet was a little much.
So I'm
And
curious.
just for,
Mhm.
go ahead.
I was just curious as to why 35. We know that 44.8 and 43, so 45, 44, those were pretty heavy PFOA years.
Right.
We've since seen that tail off, and now we're down at 26. So why would, I guess, I'm like Mr. Cutter's number closer, because I think that's a more reflection of reality when we're not, the reality is we're not going to be litigating to the level that we were in the past unless something significant changes. I mean,
Just for clarity for the public who's dialed in, or might be watching this on the recording or the playback, my recommendation for this line, which I haven't motioned yet, is $8,116, so $5,000 more than what this 40 motion.
so I think,
The compromise, so we're not here.
no, I understand and I appreciate it. I wanted to hear your explanation, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to sway, because I think 30 is more in line with the actual reflection of what we're going to be spending. I mean, we're just, if 2019 was 26,000. I don't know that we would expect anything of greater significance to hit. I mean, again, like you said, you can't anticipate
Yeah.
everything, but I don't
I'd like to
foresee
hear-
anything.
I'd like to hear from our new committee members this year, Mr. Sun and Mr. Taylor, on this one.
Well, I was just looking at, our spend to date on this thus far, which is at 16. I lean more towards getting this down to 30. And so I would be okay with the 8116 reduction. Based on what we saw in 2019 and 2020.
And I would follow suit. I fully support the drop of $8,116 to get it back to previous levels.
Ms. Harrison?
Can I ask a question?
Sure. I can't see the conference room right now, so yes. There we go.
No, one of my thoughts was, I know that what has been mentioned is that some of the legal expenses of the town is that, with only having such a budget, there are limits to what we're able to do. So I know there have been many discussions in terms of trying to go back to the PUC about like the municipal rates with Penachuk. I mean, the more that we reduce this line, it does take away ability to even plan for any additional or change in legal services to the town. So.
Yeah, I agree. This is a shot in the dark, simply put, right? I mean, it's a shot in the dark every year. There's things that can come up. We've seen that in the past. It's a best guess line. It is.
And I guess I would just add on that, if the legal services that we go ahead and utilize as part of the town, expect to see an increase next year. I think I mentioned when we talked about this during the previous couple of weeks, start showing some benefit to the town. And you know what? Use that money wisely. And then at that point, more than happy to go ahead and increase it in future years if we're seeing tangible benefits back to the town.
I also think that if the Board of Selectmen reviews this and says, hey, we can do everything we've done so far with this funding, but the PUC is, beyond that, there's nothing stopping them from asking for that money specifically. There's nothing saying, hey, warrant Article 37, I'd like 10 grand to go negotiate specifically with the PUC. And if it takes 2-3 years to expend that fund, they could do that. But there's nothing saying that they can't ask for the money. It was just saying, we haven't seen it to date. Based on what we've seen spent, this makes sense.
All right. So with this, and in the interest of time, right, we have an hour left in tonight's meeting. I'm going to make a motion to increase this reduction to $8,116.
Second.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second by Mr. Taylor. Discussion being as just discussed. We'll go through a roll call vote unless there's discussion.
Mr. Chair, just a point of reference. Is this an amendment to Ms. Forty's original motion?
Yes. And now we're voting on the approval of the amendment, and then we'll vote on the dollar amount.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Douglas.
Aye.
Mr. Hayes.
Aye.
Ms. Forty.
No.
Mr. Leary.
No.
Mr. Hodgkins.
Aye.
Ms. Harrison.
No.
Mr. Sun.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
I am also an aye. That passes 6-3-0. Now we'll vote on the actual motion to reduce legal services by $8,116. Ms. Douglas.
Aye.
Mr. Hayes.
Aye.
Ms. Forty.
Aye.
Mr. Leary.
No.
Mr. Hodgkins.
Aye.
Ms. Harrison.
No.
Mr. Sun.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
And I am also an aye. So that passes 7-0. Right. A note here. All right, moving forward into planning board, 419110, please. All right. right, any motions, discussion from the committee members?
So I don't know which way is the best way to go here. You want to throw out your higher number? You want me to throw out my lower number?
I'll make a motion to reduce the planning board budget by $1,050.
Second.
Your motion in a second. Discussion being, a large part of this is mileage and tolls and seminars as discussed at a 50% reduction, and then also a $900 reduction in public notices and ads, which gets it more in line with actuals. I know that current year actuals are higher, but if we look at past history on this account, the 2020 approved was $675, 2019 approved was $675, 2018 approved was $675. So we've seen a large increase in this line as well. This is getting it back down to
I know
past years.
there's been an increase in cost because of the change in the available newspapers. And my understanding also was there was an increase in number of notices. Would that be correct, Mr. Brown? That the cost of, particularly with the notices, and I mean, this will come up for zoning board and advertising and regional associations as well, but I know that those lines had been increased due to the loss of the HLN, and also an increase in activity.
There's been activity increase in printing cost. In this particular line, I do believe that in revenues, I have offset the $1,500 with revenue in the amount of $1,500.
Okay.
So, whatever, you're not going to get a net for any reduction in this line. You won't get a net savings because we're doing a gross budget for what we anticipate the cost to be, and it's usually offset with revenues that we collect from the applicants looking for lot line adjustments, subdivision plans, and site plans.
Further discussion? Any amendments to the motion? No? All right. Motion to reduce planning board by $1,050. Ms. Douglas?
Aye.
Mr. Hayes?
Aye.
Ms. Forty?
Aye.
Mr. Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins?
Aye.
Ms. Harrison?
Aye.
Mr. Sun?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
And I am also an aye. That passes 9-0-0. No?
Only because you didn't touch the planner.
Okay, moving forward tonight into zoning board, please. 419130. Any motions from the committee? Ms. Forty, you want to beat me to this one?
I mean, I think my number was 400 reduction. Reducing notices and then also a smaller reduction in seminars and conventions than your proposed. But if you'd rather go with yours, that's fine.
Look, okay, I will make a motion to reduce the zoning board budget by $750.
I'll second it. That seems huge, but I'll second it.
It's a small
Motion
budget.
and a second. Discussion being, zoning public notices and ads, same discussion we had, right? This has been an increase year over year consistently. Same thing we just talked about with planning board, and this is getting it back in line. And then a small 50% reduction, which equates to $50 on seminar.
I just think when you get with these smaller amounts for seminars of 50% is, it's $100. Like, it's for specific workshops. You're not going to see.
I'm just trying to be consistent.
I know.
And I guess I would just say in terms of, if it goes back to, is a certification that's required? Probably not. So therefore, I'd even be okay if we dropped it $100 this year just because of the decrease in influx.
Yeah, the budget's only $100 for that line.
Right. And we'd want to keep $1 in it to keep the line open, so we'd drop it 99. Further discussion?
I guess
Amended motions?
my question would be relative to the notices and ads. I mean,
Yeah.
we're gonna experience that expense regardless of whether or not you cut it here. Like, I mean,
Right.
it's maybe if we're doing gross budgeting, right? Here's the expenses, the revenues on the revenue side. And did you say that on this one they wash?
Yes.
So, I mean, we still have to pay it. I don't know what we're getting, which is a major reduction because the cost here is going to tie to what it's covering it. It's self-funding it based on what I'm hearing. So reducing it, unless we're trying to turn a profit, I guess, but I don't know that's appropriate. So I just,
Yeah, I mean, I could have made the same argument with planning board as well. I agree with that.
they have a bigger
I don't
budget.
know if we need
absorb.
to.
What was that?
I don't know if we need to be consistent from that standpoint, or
I was looking at planning board more as a bottom line that they have a
lot more.
they had a proposed budget of almost 41.6 or even higher than that depending on which column I'm looking. I don't know. There's too many columns, but the zoning board you're talking about reduced. I'm sorry, the amount was $750 out of a $1,600 budget. So to me, it's not there. As much as I want to vote yes, I just don't know that I don't know that I can.
Okay, well, let's move it to vote, see how it washes out, and we'll move forward, all right? Ms. Douglas?
I'm going to vote no.
No, okay. Mr. Hayes?
I'm going to vote yes.
Ms. Forty?
No.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Mr. Hodgkins?
Yes.
Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
no.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. It carries 6-3-0. Okay, moving forward, please. We're moving into cemeteries, 419510. Questions, comments, discussion, motions from the committee?
Troy, is that number
Anyone?
cover what we're paying for mowing services? Is that what the budget is? Or
Yeah,
is there anything else in
well,
there?
pretty much what's driving this is the cemetery groundskeeping.
It was the spring and fall cleanups, if I remember, right? The increase because it wasn't budgeted, but still being billed.
Well,
Right.
we had a couple of things. We had, I don't believe that we had the cuttings budgeted correctly. So I put it at 14 cuttings per year. And the spring cleanup, you're right. We had prisoners that were doing that. That program's gone away. So now we hire the contractor to do that as well.
And there was a cost associated with that in the past too, though. It was $1,000 a week.
Spring cleanup was done with, we budgeted $2,000. I
Right.
think it's in general government where,
Oh, is that where it was?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we did utilize the work program, but
They-
there was still a cost associated with it.
Right.
But I thought the discussion was that we used to have volunteers and then people for some reason don't volunteer as much anymore when they can.
They got old.
Well,
But you know what, though? I would actually argue that there is quite a bit of volunteerism in the town. I mean, take a look and see what Jason Brennan and that group has been able to do as far as the beautification projects. I mean, all of that's been self-funded as well as volunteer-based, so.
no, and I agree.
I
My
just
only
look-
point is it's usually the same people volunteering. Eventually you burn out. So
This, just to refresh a memory, is this something that we bid out?
Yes.
It is.
I believe it's
And
currently with
the-
Damnation, right?
And that's the attachment that's in, that's the that was their estimate that we accepted, correct?
That's an example of a bill that they submit.
Sure.
The last time this was bid out, it would have been maybe 3 years ago or so. I don't think at that time, I don't know if it was for a set period of time or it was just bid out and then there was no end date. But the amounts per cut have not changed from the original bid.
So the town owns the church cemetery?
Yes.
Otherwise, I would have said. And that's the church.
Well, the original cemetery.
Is there an opportunity to roll the groundskeeping in with Parks and Rec?
That's always.
No, it's not really.
No, that's just gone out to bid. There was some discussion about trying to go in that direction, but it didn't really. It just never really connected. There was some discussion about if the highway department position was passed last year, we were going to take on maybe one or two cemeteries and take on some of the smaller rec facilities, but that position was eliminated or not approved. I'm sorry. So yeah, it's different contractor that does the rec fields and different contractor for cemetery.
Yeah, I don't know. That process just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me, but okay. Any motions for groundskeeping or for cemeteries? I'll make a motion to reduce the budget and specifically the groundskeeping line by 3,290.
I'll second, 'cause I'm intrigued.
A motion and a second discussion. This has been consistently $10,000 year over year. I think we pay way too much for the mowings and for the cleanups of our cemeteries.
If I'm looking at year-to-date spend on this, we've actually already overspent this account this year. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
And Mr. Sun, you know, if you go back, right, 2014, 7,600, 2015, 7,000, 2016, 7,000, 2017, we actually spent 500, 2018, 7,000, 2019 was 7,000, and then it spiked to 2020 from 7,000 to 10,000, and now 10,000 to 13,300, right? So in a matter of a 2-year period, we're seeing nearly a $6,000 increase in line.
I believe
Is the main reason we've seen that because of the cleanup that we're now incurring that's no longer a part of that program from the prison? Is that
it's part of it.
Part of it, but the general grass cutting has increased.
I also remember from our discussion of this that there was some dissatisfaction with previous
There was.
cutters not being as precise, shall we say. And if we're cutting around, people's headstones, I mean, there is a certain level of respect and decorum we would expect.
Yeah, the last vendor apparently was taking out flags and wreaths and other things, flowers that people had planted, and so they eliminated him, and now they go with Dalmatian, who does a very nice job.
I mean, the reality is this is driven, the way to make major reductions or any reductions is either you change the number of cuttings or you negotiate a better price. I mean, neither of which, I don't think that we have if it's a contract and these are the rates that we've agreed to, I don't know that we can. Twice a month for 7 months seems reasonable based on, I'm trying to figure out when snow flies and when you actually can do it. But that the numbers seems about right. I mean, I mow my own lawn, so I can't tell you if that's the right rate. So, but I don't think it's out of the ballpark.
I'm not going to dispute the number of cuts. I'm disputing the rate per cut.
I can't tell you, like I said, I mow my own lawn. I have no idea what the going rate is for mowing, but I don't think it's so far over that if it's going to be a work of a very detailed nature and very sensitive, there's going to be a premium associated with that. So you can't compare it to a regular clean cutting of an acre of flat land. I mean, this is a lot more work associated with this. So I couldn't even tell you how long it takes. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's just the rate of growth. Like there's nobody that can justify that kind of rate of growth. If I'm in business and I'm getting that kind of rate of growth, that's just absolutely unheard of. So I think we need to put a reduction in here to reopen that conversation.
So I guess one question we could ask is, what is the going rate of mowing a cemetery? Can we have the cemetery trustees reach out to another local cemetery that uses another agency and see what is the going rate? Because I have no idea. And I don't know that anybody here knows what it costs to mow around a headstone carefully and cautiously with the necessary respect shown the families and the people there. So right now we're throwing darts at a wall. We don't know.
Right.
Mr. Sun, go ahead.
I was going to, picking up on Mrs. Douglas, when I look at the trimming and mowing of, let's use Hillcrest, for example, $310, is that a 2-hour job? Is that a 6-hour job? I mean, I think having an understanding of what that looks like might help me better justify, is that the right amount or not? I really don't know without knowing what that looks like. I know when I occasionally have someone mow my 2.5 acres, that takes about 3 hours to do. I know what that rate is. And I know that's not an apples to apples comparison because it is a little more intricate. But that at least gives me a starting point.
I would just remind this committee, even though we're making a motion, some of these difficult conversations, again, I would just refresh everyone in December. I have no problems adding money back into this budget. I've done it time before and I will do it certainly again. So if the cemetery trustees come and say, hey, you know what, you just missed the mark on this and you cut too much, I'm glad to have that conversation and I gladly will add money back in.
Just as my final comment, I think in these types of situations, especially seeing this type of growth, I've been on the other side of the table as a vendor trying to sell to a government agency. And there's many times that you're just told, look, this is what I have, take it or leave it. And you know what? Sooner or later, somebody that does a quality job, an up and coming company, will go ahead and fill that particular void. And I think we just need to put this in place so that way that tough conversation can be had. And maybe we find the right up and coming company that can do a fantastic job for us at the rates that we're accustomed to.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's bring it to vote. Ms. Douglas.
I was trying to look it back just to see where we were actually.
The motion is a reduction of $3,290 from the cemetery groundskeeping line.
I'm going to vote. I don't feel I have enough information, so I'm going to vote no because I can vote yes later.
Okay, Mr. Hayes.
I'm going to vote affirmative.
Affirmative. Okay, Ms. Forty.
No.
Mr. Leary.
No.
Mr. Hodgkins.
Yeah, this one's a real hard one for me. Everybody knows how I feel about reductions. But when it comes to like a cemetery and the respect due the people that are in there, I find it very hard to take away from that. So I'm going to have to vote no.
Okay. I appreciate that. Ms. Harrison.
No.
Mr. Sun.
No.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
And I am also an aye. Motion fails. 4. Did I get that right? 360. If I got that right. Okay. Zero. Any further motions, conversation, discussion on cemeteries?
I think
Hearing none. Go ahead.
Go ahead. What do you want?
No, just on this
Advertising.
spring cleanup, I feel maybe it would be good for if there's a group in town that's looking for a volunteer project or something where if we saw maybe if there was a group that could step up, then that I see could be a place in the future where we could cut this spring cleanup if we have a group that will do a good enough job. I feel like we could get some volunteers together, but we need to plan that.
Well, I
But
think
I don't feel
yeah.
comfortable at this point.
And they still do it. I mean, my family's gone up
To
there,
pick-
and I know Mr. Callaway's been up there and
Yeah.
clearing branches, but we've had trees that have come down
right.
that drives a
there's-
lot of it.
So a lot of it's probably beyond the scope
Professional.
of the Boy Scouts or the Cub Scouts or some other organization when you actually have to bring in a chipper or something.
Yeah, professional. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
All right, let's move into advertising, please. This is 419710. Any questions, thoughts, comments, motion? I heard a sigh. All right, hearing none, we'll close advertising and move into welfare vendor payments. This is 4445.
So
This one's easy.
nothing we can do here.
Nothing we can do here. Discussion. Okay, we'll close it out.
I mean,
Moving
the only,
into-
the only discussion we would see
That's
on
better.
that, I would think, is if we actually need to replenish the fund come warrant article time. So hopefully it's still working well.
Right, we can table that until the warrant article time when that's
Exactly.
presented. Patriotic purposes, 4583, please. Questions? Motion, comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move into conservation, 461120. I will make a motion to reduce conservation by $152.50.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second, discussion being this is specifically hitting the mileage and tolls and seminars line at a 50% reduction. Discussion.
Didn't we talk about this last year? And don't they have like a $3 million fund or something like that they sit on?
That's my motion for the next one.
I mean, is that true?
It's not that,
Now they have,
believe that's
this
not
was
the
confirmed
remaining.
today, and I believe the number was somewhere around $680,000.
691, maybe.
Right. So this is tied to
Thanks, yeah,
the
691.
mileage and tolls and stuff.
Okay, further discussion? Bring it to vote. Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hayes,
Aye.
Ms. Forty,
yes.
Mr. Leary,
Aye.
aye, Mr. Hodgkins,
Aye.
Ms. Harrison,
Aye.
Mr. Sun,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
and I am also an aye. That passes 900.
I make a motion to reduce line 430 in the amount of $550.
We have a motion.
No.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so
We have a
this
motion and a
Yep, this
second.
is-
I'm sorry, what was the dollar amount, Carrie?
$550 for,
Okay.
so we've discussed in the past, there is that conservation fund. There was a warrant article several years ago that authorized the use of that fund for maintenance and expansion of the trails. So push mower and chainsaw, in my opinion, fall under maintenance and would be a appropriate usage of that fund. And since there is an alternative method of funding these items, I don't believe that it is necessary to be in the taxes directly.
Yeah, I don't know that setting it to zero though is appropriate. I know there are certain minor expenses that come up.
All right,
Property
$499.
management.
But
You know, if I look at this line in the history, right, in 2015, it was $100. In 2016, it was $100. In 2017, it was $1,200, but we actually spent, $350. 2018, we spent $2,500. 2019, we spent $700. If I look at the 3-year average on this, we're actually at $1,200. I don't know. I think 550 is a good number.
all right.
That's my 2 cents. Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree with Kerry. They already have another means of funding this. So why the taxpayers have to foot the bill? I'd say no.
Okay. Others?
Was the original motion to reduce this down to 0?
Yes.
Yes, because
Uh.
my belief is that the warrant article that expanded the use of the conservation fund to include property maintenance is an appropriate method of funding these requests, that it need not actually be included in the tax bill. It's not to say that they're not needed and they're not necessary, but that there's an alternative funding mechanism available that is more appropriate to be used. That is all my motion is to say.
And so then my follow-up to that would be, should we zero this out, or would it make sense to keep it at $1 if that's the line of thinking? And if that's the case, I would move to amend that to reduce it by $549. To keep it.
Okay, we have an amended motion to $549. Is there a second?
I will second that because I'm not going to bicker over $1.
We have an amended motion for $549. Further discussion? All right, we'll vote
And
on
simply-
the move. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted, to clarify, simply the only reason to amend that was so as not to zero this line item out, to keep it.
It keeps it
for future
available.
Purposes.
Absolutely.
Correct.
All right, so we'll first vote on the amended motion and then vote on the dollars. Start with Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hayes,
Aye.
Ms. Forty,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins.
No, only because I would rather get rid of this line item and have them go to the other funding source.
Okay. Ms. Harrison.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Sun,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
and I am a no on this one. So this passes 7-0, and now we'll vote on the motion to reduce it by $549. Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hayes,
Aye.
Ms. Forty,
No.
Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Aye.
Ms. Harrison,
No.
Mr. Sun,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
and I am a no on this one. Motion carries 6-3. Okay. Moving right along into debt service. This is 4723, please. Pretty self-explanatory. Any comments on this one? No? Okay, we'll close debt service. We are, just a time check, we are at 9 o'clock. I think we can probably get through a few more of these budgets before concluding tonight. Is everyone okay with that?
Yes, please.
All right, let's move forward. Parks and Recreation, please. This is budget 45-2010. Thoughts, comments, questions?
I did have a question.
So it was unfortunate that they did not present to us because I know we had some questions about intentions for certain lines. Without that information, I would err on the side of making some reductions. If other people have a specific number that they were working off of.
My recommendations here, and I'm sure the committee has this in front of them, my recommendations were to reduce Parks and Rec by a total of $3,114. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion being, I had tagged $614 reduction for building repair and maintenance, $500 reduction for general supplies, and then the main part of this is $2,000 for field maintenance.
See, the only thing I had in addition to that was the question regarding playground equipment. Like, are we adding more or is that mulch? Like what, because I see mulch up ahead for field maintenance. So what is the 3,500 earmarked for? Do we know?
I don't have an answer on that. I'm sorry.
Because I was fine with replacing and improving, but at this point, I would think that we've invested a good amount in that playground. So I don't see why crowdsourcing or like a fundraiser, a calendar, something else could be used to fund playground equipment if this is additional. And I see capital outlay, so I'm assuming it's additional playground equipment instead of replacement or repairs, because there is.
What's the total spent on that line this year? I know it was 0 in mid-September. Anyone have that?
Yeah, somewhere.
It wasn't a lot
Parks and Rec, line 730.
when I looked earlier.
Year to date, we've only spent $215.
Yeah, so it's minor, right? You know, it's a good point, Carrie. You know, in years we've funded this and nothing's been spent. And actually, several years. 2016, we funded $5,000, nothing spent. 2017, 5,000, nothing spent. 2018, 5,000, nothing spent. 2019, 5,000, they spent 3,500, which I suspect is some of that playground equipment. 2020, 5,000, now we have a couple $100 spent. It was reduced from 5,000 to 3,500, but you're right. I think it's a good area to make a reduction.
So I would make a motion to amend your number to add $34.99 to it, to bring it to $1. But in the absence of an actual plan, I think there are other methods of funding any additional equipment or things that people want to see there, that groups can come together and fund it in another way.
So because it was a bottom line motion, if you could just make that motion to be 6,613.
I'd like to amend your motion to, what was the number?
6,613.
That one. Oh, I'd make a motion to amend it to that.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All right.
I think it's a budget that deserves a little bit of trimming in the absence of information.
I mean, that's not to say that they can't come forward and say, this is our plan for the next 5 years, and try to get buy-in, put it on a warrant article to get people to support it. It doesn't mean that we can't find a plan, but in the absence of a plan, I think it can not be taxed.
And then I think one of the questions I had asked today was when we were, because I know we didn't have the final number for the field maintenance for the contract, and I know that they're going to be discussing that at their meeting on the 27th. So
we'll be opening it up again anyway.
Yeah.
All right. I'm comfortable with the current number.
All right. So we will vote on the amendment first and then vote on the dollar. Ms. Douglas.
Aye.
Mr. Hayes.
Aye.
Ms. Forty.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins.
Aye.
Ms. Harrison.
Aye.
Mr. Sun.
Aye.
Aye. And Mr. Taylor.
Nay.
Nay. And I am an aye. So that carries 8-1-0. Okay, now we'll vote on the dollar amount to reduce the Parks and Rec budget by $6,613. Ms. Douglas.
Aye.
Mr. Hayes.
Aye.
Ms. Forty.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins.
Aye.
Ms. Harrison.
Aye.
Mr. Sun.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
And I am an aye. That passes 9-0-0. No.
Library.
Next up will be library, and I know we have Vicki with us this evening. Welcome, Vicki. Thank you for sticking it out. I'm sure it's been a long night. Riveting conversation for you to listen into. Got it. All right. Any questions, comments, concerns with the library this evening?
This number.
There was an email exchange on this earlier today about the septic, and I believe that was removed.
Yeah, so there are some additional PDFs in the Excel spreadsheet about additional reductions. When Vicki had spoke with us, was before the trustees meeting. So there were certain things that we had questions on, but I actually think they did a good job of finding additional reductions.
Okay. Any motions?
No motion at this time. I'd like to commend them for not only the reductions, but I think specifically looking at mileage and seminars, which we've kind of honed in on holistically. And I think being thoughtful about that, much appreciated.
Okay, hearing none. Vicky, thank you very much for joining. Sorry it was uneventful for you at the moment. I guess that's
You
good
always
news.
learn something. Thank you.
Have a good night. Appreciate it.
You too.
All right, moving into information technology, 4150. Getting there
I don't even
myself.
know where to begin on that one. So
Thoughts,
We got-
comments, questions? Ms. Douglas?
we got the contract today. Good Lord. One of the first things that struck me was that, well, other than the number, was that we somehow moved from a contracted services to an employee. Now, last year, when we proposed a new employee, that became a warrant article. So I'm curious as to how we moved from a contracted services to recognizing a new employee without going through the process of adding a new employee because it's a new role as an employee. So what is the thought process there as to why we made that change without going through the warrant process?
You want me to answer that? So the Board of Selectmen in the past have always created part-time positions without warrant article. We've created, the Solid Waste Department has part-time positions, Highway has part-time, Police has had part-time, and we've never, at least I'm not aware of going for the warrant article to create a part-time position with no benefits.
So the expectation then is that, say in 5 years when this contract ends, that we are not going to continue to be, if it's going to continue to be a part-time and not a full-time position. The intent is not to ramp up the cost to people become comfortable with the cost to hire a new employee.
The intent is to lock him in at a very favorable rate to the town for 5 years. Now, even at part-time, this probably should cost us twice what we're paying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But what this does is it allows us to have him on board, and everybody knows what he does. He does way more above and beyond than what he's actually contracted to do. It gives us this person for 5 years, and we locked him in at 2% pay raises instead of 3%, which was on the table. He gets no benefits. It's a very favorable one for what he does. It's a very favorable contract for the town.
So I believe that he gets 26,000 next year. He currently gets 18. So how is that a 3%, 2% increase?
In the first year of this contract,
First year.
4,400.
the first year of this contract,
Gets a bump.
he goes from 18,000 to 26,400.
That's not 2%.
So once we made that,
One-time bump.
once we have the first year of the contract in place, from that point forward, it's a 2% increase year over year.
Listen, I remember how this, I think Mr. Chairman Cutter and I are probably two of the only here who remember how this position came to be and how the budget committee at one point actually fully funded a full-time contracted position. And so to see this, which used to be a volunteer position for decades, to now going to cost us $26,000 and then have a built-in increase. I'm trying to set aside the fact that I'm really aggravated about how this even came to be, and then looking just at the numbers to begin with, and then the fact that we went from contracted to employee.
He's basically an employee anyways. And
Yeah,
if
but
it-
the only reason it got sold last time was because he wasn't a
It doesn't
contracted.
matter. If it ever went to court, the court
Time
would
out.
find him an employee. There's no
I'd
question
like to
about
give
it.
Mr. Taylor a chance to speak to this, please. Mr. Taylor, I thought,
Oh, sorry, Mr.
I
Kadar.
thought I saw your hand up.
Nope,
No?
sorry.
Okay, my bad.
I mean, I don't know that there's anything we can do other than me sit here and say, oh my goodness, I guess I need you guys negotiating my salary the next time I go to work, because that's insane of an increase in 1 year. I'm sorry, I like John personally, but on a budget perspective, when we're getting killed in taxes and reductions, I can't go to my neighbors and say, yeah, I think that's a good idea, because I don't. I don't.
You are entitled to that opinion, but we felt that with what this guy brings to the table for the town, this is still grossly underpaying him.
Just as a point of information for someone who doesn't have all the history,
Mhm.
how, because at least on the 3 years I've been here, it's been 18.
Mhm.
How long has it been at 18?
I just want to acknowledge Ms. Harrison, Mr. Sun. I know you have questions. Hold that thought for one moment, please. Go ahead.
So didn't it start at 6 and then went to 12 and now it's at 18, or did it start at 12? It either started at 12, went to 18, and now we're at 26. I just know that when we see these increases on some of these employees that are getting 20%, we scream bloody murder. But here we're okay with
Well,
it.
again, I want to make sure we're keeping it to the dollars here, right? And not debating the contract, because that's not in our purview.
There's
right?
nothing
But
I can do other
the
than say that
dollars is.
think it's out insane. I don't even know what you can do. It's insane.
Ms. Harrison.
I just wanted to say that I understand the increased need. I mean, we have seen the increased need within the school district as well. As technology increases, you need somebody there to do the work, more frequently than on a contracted basis. Completely understand that. And I know that Mr. Brunel also provides a great deal of service above and beyond what what he is contracted to do. And I appreciate that. My issue is with the double standard of, the stance of the budget committee historically, based on the warrant article passed in 2003, that we do not add positions unless they are on a warrant. And we have heard every year when this district comes forward and has, necessary needs for new positions, we hold off and we put them on the warrant and they are approved by the voters. So I disagree. I agree with Carrie on this, that going from a contracted vendor to a part-time employee, it goes against that vote. It goes against that town's intent, and it clearly shows a double standard between the town and how the school is expected to operate.
I 100% agree with Ms. Harrison and Ms. Douglas on this one. Mr. Sun.
Yeah, so I don't have all of the historical knowledge as it pertained to a lot of the things that you all have spoken about. I have had conversations about, the warrant article and adding staff. And so I do understand that, but I was not involved in those conversations when this position was created. What I did do, and just as a point of reference, my background is in IT. And so when I looked at the other towns, and I actually went out and looked at all of the populations of these towns and the services that they have, focusing in on the dollar amount alone, I actually think what we pay for the services that we get in this town is a very fair and reasonable amount, if not under what other towns are paying for probably less services. So focusing strictly on the dollar amount standpoint of the contract, I think we get a great return on our investment with this particular dollar amount and this particular line item.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Yeah, I have no opinion either way when it comes to the salary, but I do actually agree with Kerry saying that I believe it should go to the voters.
And point of reference, when this first came up, the budget committee fully funded a contracted position at then member Cutter's recommendation, now Chair Cutter's. There was $65,000 that was put in the budget to fully fund a contracted position, because the concern then was we didn't want to rely on one person. If we contracted to a service, then if, say, that person that we're relying on goes somewhere else, you have accessibility while that person's, say, on vacation in Florida. Or if something is not in his expertise, they have the ability to draw down on information available elsewhere within that organization. So the idea was, let's fund the service we need as a contracted position. But now we've moved from a contracted position to an employee without following the process to add employees in the proper fashion. I mean,
fact of the matter is, we have multi-millions of dollars of infrastructure and IT equipment in this town. I don't think anyone is going to dispute that, especially with a $700,000 communication tower equipment being installed right now. I view this as business continuity and as continuation of service, right? And I think, and as I've said several years ago at this point, that while Mr. Brunel does do way above and beyond his call of duty, he's sitting in on all these WebEx sessions. I do believe this should be a fully funded position within this town through a service. I do understand and recognize that that will cost the town more dollars, likely about $30,000 more dollars per year. And I do understand that we may get a little bit less service, maybe a lot less service. But in terms of continuity of service, in terms of strategic thinking and long-term planning, I do believe it's in the best interest of the town. Years ago, just to give the committee some history, I did motion, the committee did approve adding this position at $65,000, adding the dollars for a contracted service of $65,000. That passed the voters in the operating budget. And because it's a bottom line budget, the Board of Selectmen wiped that money and used it for other things or went back into the general fund. So I'm sensitive to that happening again if that was the angle of this committee.
I just don't, all I can do here is express my dissatisfaction with the way this went down, because I have the same concern. If I raise it up, if I make a motion to add the money, there's no guarantee. I can't, like I said, it's a bottom line budget. It's going to happen again. I'm not happy with the way this went down. I don't agree with it, and I think it's wrong.
I don't agree with paying $4,000 plus this year to offset a salary that is supposed to be $26,000 next year. I don't agree with that at all. But further discussion, motions.
Well, yeah, can we talk of like just, so the increase from 18 to 22 is the 4,000. So raising that, then how do we get up to 26?
So just to be clear, Ms. Forty, it's 18 to 26. In order to offset the $4,000 cost of 26 to kind of phase it in, what it appears to be, and for lack of a better term, I'm going to call it a sign-on bonus of $4,400 plus dollars that the board has agreed to pay this current year out of this current year's operating budget to offset some of that cost for next year.
Okay.
That's exactly
Do I
correct.
have that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. That's making a little more sense in my head right now.
And so, and as I was looking at the history of this from going back to 2015, it looks like the amount of money that was raised was $54,000 in 2015. And in 2017, the contract amount for IT services was $12,000. In 18, it changed to 18,000. In 19, it was 18,000. And now we have, in 20, obviously it was 18,000. So 3 years at 18,000. And now we're going to a 5-year contract where the first year starts off at 26.4. I can tell you right now, and I think we can all agree that for $26,400, it'd be very difficult to find a contractor, an employee that would provide the services we receive today at this level of cost. I'm very familiar with what towns our size pay. There's a mixed bag out there of contracted services, full-time employees, part-time employees supplemented with contracted employees. And that range in cost goes anywhere from $50,000 to over $100,000. To hire a full-time employee, I think you're looking at a salary of $75,000 to $80,000, plus your benefits is going to put you well over $100,000. $26,400 a year, we get a lot of bang for our buck. Now the process, I understand, but the selectmen have the right to hire and fire. They have always, for any full-time position, gone forward and had the warrant article. We had 1 year where we caught ourselves in an emergency situation and we had to hire a full-time employee in the highway department. Otherwise, we've always gone forward with the warrant article. Part-time positions.
So why not do that now?
Part-time positions, at least since I've been here, we have created, and it has not been warrant article.
So the contract states that he's available 360, was it 24/7, 365? How is that not how is that considered part-time? If he's always available,
So he's-
round the clock.
5 hours a week.
He's a salary employee, basically just like our part-time fire chief. A salary employee, he's not to work more than 25 hours a week. We still maintain in the IT budget a retainer that we have for an outside contractor that John consults with when he is away and taking vacation. That contractor is put on notice and totally available to provide us with assistance if we need it. But the truth of the matter is 99% of the time, Mr. Brunel continues to run our infrastructure and assist all of our departments and employees from when he's on vacation, from his phone, from his laptop.
We could get on a cruise last year, right?
Excuse me, Chairman Cutter. Where is
Please.
the line item for that contractor, those contracted services? I don't see that in this IT budget. Am I missing it?
Yes.
I believe it's
the line
above.
Yeah,
Is it the one right above the contracted computer services?
yes.
So we keep a contractor on staff, on basically on call for when John's not able to do it for $6,000 a year?
Yes.
I think that's been reduced to 2,000.
Yes.
Oh, I'm way back in 2015, sorry.
I did the same thing.
Yes, because I have it open.
still have to voice, I mean, we go through this every year with the budget, you know, when we get to this budget, the budget season, and, you know, we've always been told that new positions have to go to the warrant. And I feel very strongly, because of the standard that the school department is held to, that, you know, we have this agreement with the budget committee. We don't hire part-time or full-time positions. We don't hire employees create new positions without it going on the warrant. So I still disagree with how this was put into the budget without voter approval.
And I will say that the school has put part-time positions on. There was a tutor a few years ago. It was a part-time position, went as a warrant article. So I'm not sure why the town feels that it's a different standard. And I don't know that there's anything I can do about it other than express my extreme dissatisfaction with how this got changed from a contract to an employee.
All right. So in the interest of time, I know we have a hard stop here in 8 minutes. Mr. Taylor, go ahead.
That you read my mind. I was just going to say, can we put an end to the discussion? This
Yeah.
should really be brought up with the Board of Selectmen if you have issues with the way that it was handled.
The motion can be, you know, we can remove this entirely as funded and then recommend that the Board of Selectmen put it towards a warrant. And if somebody wants to make that motion, please do.
I will make that motion to be consistent with all my other motions. I make a motion to remove the contract from here and to put it forth as a warrant article since it's a new
We have a
position.
motion by Ms. Douglas. Is there a second?
Second.
I will second it. Further discussion?
We can motion to reduce the line and recommend something, but we can't motion to put something on the warrant.
Nope, that is correct.
Okay.
But we can remove it
so-
from our budget, but what the Board of Selectmen does with it after that is up to them.
So just to be clear, this motion is to remove $22,000 from this current year's budget with the recommendation that be put forth in a warrant article.
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
I've said it
Ms.
all.
Douglas?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would just say that the town has added employees before, and the school, I find it funny that they're talking like they are because they put 2 in their budget last year, full-time positions. And there really wasn't much uproar about that. So this is a very good
Okay.
position for the town, and I don't know why we'd get rid of it.
Let's
I'm not
keep it on
getting rid of
point. We
it.
have a motion and a second, and we're on voting.
I'm voting
Ms. Douglas?
aye. Aye.
Mr. Hayes?
No.
No. Okay. Ms. Forty?
No.
No. Mr. Leary?
No,
Mr. Hodgkin?
Aye.
Okay. Ms. Harrison?
No.
Okay. Mr. Sun?
No.
Okay, and I am an aye. Motion
Mr.
failed.
Taylor.
I'm sorry, Mr. Taylor.
Nay.
Nay. Okay, it remains in the budget as is.
So what's the red with the computer upgrades and the Chromebooks that we see in the budget? Have those, and the LPD replacement,
They're
are those?
buying those with current year
Right,
funds.
so, okay. So those have been removed. Excellent. Because those were my next proposals, so good.
Is there any other motions on IT before we close this out and then move towards closing out tonight?
I mean, what if
I do have a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Taylor, please go ahead.
For line 341, consolidated voice fax data services for all departments, I'm recommending a reduction of $9,258.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'm going to second because I'm interested to hear your rationale.
Okay, Mr. Taylor, take it away.
Thank you very much. Just being in this industry and realizing that rates are dropping year over year, and then looking at the history of this particular line item and it going from into the 20s and now we're up to 57 is just more growth than I can handle. Certainly if Mr. Brunel is going to say, or Mr. Brown is going to say that there's a voice data line that is coming from another budget and merging into this, I could certainly be persuaded, but that kind of increase as far as the number just doesn't mix with the industry.
Is John on?
I do believe, and John can, Mr. Brunel or Mr. Brown can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I do believe the additional cost is associated with fiber and additional lines that we ran in as a part of not only the new fire station, but also when we did that, we upgraded connectivity from town hall and the police station as well. So I hear and appreciate Mr. Taylor's sentiment there, but I do believe that additional cost was associated with those items, at least in part.
Mr. Sun, you're correct, that we took the opportunity to fix a bunch of failing infrastructure and bringing in fiber into both buildings. Right. And Mr. Taylor, the run rate is the run rate. That is a singularized invoice for all town services, which covers about, what I think in my note, I think 16 facilities, plus all the data services coming into those facilities.
So
Right now, it's a 3-year contract that was negotiated down from about, I think we originally all the consolidated was around 4,000 if we did all new services individually. So it's been reduced as much as we can do this year.
So I appreciate Mr. Taylor's attempt and the way he's thinking. I do think we should look long-term at improving the efficiency of our system economically wise. I don't see why $3,200 a month is necessary when everybody seems to have, because my understanding is a lot of this is driven by long distance phone calls. And if a number of our people are issued cell phones, then why we need to use landlines to conduct those long distance phone calls when a lot of plans have free long distance minutes is something that I think we should explore. I don't know that it's something that we can address in this year's budget, but I would encourage our IT director and the departments to find ways to better maximize the usage of taxpayer dollars relative to tel data services.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's bring it to vote, please. Ms. Douglas.
No.
Mr. Hayes.
No.
Ms. Forty.
No.
Mr. Leary.
No.
Mr. Hodgkins.
Yes.
Ms. Harrison.
No.
Mr. Sun.
No.
No. Mr. Taylor.
No.
And I am also a no. Motion fails. 180.
Mm-hmm.
Any further motions on IT?
Oh.
What do people feel about the ID printer, the one-time expenditure? That's.
I think that's a board of selectmen matter, right?
Well, I mean, you could remove the funding. You don't have to fund it just because it's in there. If Nikki would like to make the motion, she should make the motion, but that's up to her.
Sure.
That just question before Ms. Forty makes that motion. Is that something that has the opportunity to be spent out of this year's funds? Much like we did with the Chromebooks and other items?
So the board approved at their meeting on Monday about $55,000. I believe, Mr. Brown, you had indicated about $180,000 in the budget, in this current operating budget as a result in savings from expenses. That would leave what, 120 or so thousand remaining in this current year's budget.
That's correct. And so I mentioned to the board that we would do this in 2 steps. The first step being a recommendation of the reductions of about $55,000, taking those out of the proposed budget. And then we give ourselves more time as we get closer to year end to see what the comfort level is to take additional equipment out of the 2021 budget. Something like this, the ID printer, it is something that we've looked at and discussed, but we're also looking at radio equipment in general throughout the organization and seeing if we can make a big effort in that to try to remove it in even the 2022 plan. So.
Okay. Any motions?
I have one,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Under the line item for website hosting services, to reduce that by $300.
Which account number is that, please?
Yep, 342,
342.
website hosting
$300.
services.
Second.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second discussion.
As I had mentioned before, and when we met about this a couple of weeks ago, I don't find it necessary for the town to be spending $300 on the litchfieldrec.com domain and hosting services. That could easily be hosted under the regular town website, and most of the organizations that run under rec actually have their own site, their own registration process.
All right, in the interest of time, I'm going to bring it to vote. Ms. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. Forty,
Yes.
Mr. Leary. Oh, looks like he stepped out. Mr. Hodgkins,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Sun,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
and I am a yes. That passes 8-0-0. Okay. Any other motions on IT? Okay, hearing none, we're going to close IT. Next week, we'll pick up with Mosquito District 441120. Just real quick, I do want to move into member input. Is there any final input from the committee before we conclude this evening?
Nope.
Anybody from the public join us?
You wanted me to mention something, Andrew.
Oh, please, go ahead.
The school district's like capital improvement committee is changing to like a facilities improvement committee to go forward, thinking about things like potential school, etc. I wasn't sure if, because I was appointed by the committee to the capital improvement part of the school, if it was the will of the committee for me to continue serving on this, or if people felt strongly one way or the other. I would like to, but
I'll make a motion to nominate Nikki to continue to serve on the school.
What is there a difference in the focus, or is it the same, just a name change? of the
well,
committee?
so the capital improvements, I think, was more broad, and it was
Okay.
figuring out what the school was what they were going to give to the capital improvement committee
Mhm.
that the chair sits on continuously. So that's continuing kind of in one vein. This, I believe from the email I received from Michelle, is going to be more focused on, okay, what are we doing with, that trust fund that was created that has a certain amount of money in it, are plans potentially for different improvements. So it's similar, but not exactly the same.
Oh, okay. I figured they were all under the same umbrella, so go ahead, Andrew.
I made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's a
Further
non-voting position, just for clarification.
All right, Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hayes,
I'm an aye.
Ms. Forty,
Aye. I'll vote for
Ms.
myself.
Leary, Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Aye.
Ms. Harrison,
Aye.
Mr. Sun,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
and I am an aye. Motion passes 9-0-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from the public join us this evening?
There have been no additional participants.
Thank you, Mr. Brunel. All right, with that, we are on for next Thursday, October 29th. Again, 7 p.m. start. We're going to pick it up with Mosquito District and get through the rest of the budget for voting. Have a good evening, everyone. I guess I need a motion to adjourn, don't I?
So made.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
Mr. Hayes,
Aye.
Ms. Wardy,
Aye.
Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Hodgkins,
Aye.
Ms. Harrison,
Aye.
Mr. Sun,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
I am an aye. We are adjourned by a vote of 900. Thanks, everyone. See you next week. Have a good night.